The room fell silent the moment she said it. Cameras were still rolling, the lights were still bright, but something had shifted, something that no one in that moment could fully explain. All eyes turned toward Park Min-young as she leaned slightly forward, her expression caught between amusement and hesitation. It wasn't just another playful behind-the-scenes anecdote, it wasn't just another routine interview moment. What she revealed next would ripple across fan communities, ignite debates, and leave people questioning just how much of what they see on screen is real, and how much lingers long after the cameras stop. Because when she spoke about kissing Wi Ha-joon, it didn't sound like acting. It sounded like something else entirely. The moment that changed everything. It started innocently enough. The interview had been lighthearted, filled with laughter and playful teasing. The cast was relaxed, clearly comfortable with one another. Fans watching the live broadcast expected the usual fun stories, a few behind-the-scenes secrets, maybe a humorous mishap or two. But then the conversation shifted. A host, perhaps sensing the chemistry that audiences had already been obsessing over, asked the question everyone had been thinking. What was it like filming those kissing scenes? There was a brief pause. Not awkward, not forced, just long enough to feel real. Park Min-young smiled, but it wasn't her usual polished camera-ready smile. It was softer, more thoughtful, as if she was deciding how much she should say and how much she shouldn't. And then she answered. It wasn't what I expected. Her voice was calm, but every word carried weight. She explained that like any professional actress, she approached the scene with preparation and focus. Kissing scenes, after all, are part of the job. They are choreographed, rehearsed, and carefully directed. But this time felt different. Not because of the script, not because of the setting, but because of him. Wi Ha-joon. She described how attentive he was during filming, how he paid attention to the smallest details, not just the technical aspects of the scene, but the emotional tone behind it. He wasn't just acting out a moment, he was fully present in it. And that presence, she admitted, made it harder to separate fiction from reality. The room reacted immediately, soft laughter, surprised glances, a few raised eyebrows. But she wasn't finished. The detail that made fans pause. It wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it. Park Min-young went on to describe the atmosphere during the filming of those scenes. She talked about how quiet the set became, how even the crew seemed to hold their breath as the cameras rolled. There was an intensity to it, a stillness, a focus that made everything else fade away. And then she said something that would quickly become the most replayed part of the interview. It didn't feel like acting in that moment. The reaction was immediate. Gasps, laughter, and then just as quickly a wave of whispers spreading across the internet. Fans react too much or just honest. Within minutes, clips of the interview began circulating online. Fan pages dissected every word, comment sections exploded with reactions. Some viewers found her honesty refreshing, even admirable. Others weren't so sure. Did she just admit that it felt real? Is there something going on between them? Why would she say that publicly? And then came the phrase that would dominate discussions. She's being too much. For some, her comments crossed an invisible line, the line between promoting on-screen chemistry and revealing something deeper in an industry where image is everything. Even a hint of authenticity can feel disruptive. But for others, that was exactly what made it so compelling. Because it felt real. The chemistry, everyone noticed. Long before this interview, fans had already been talking about the undeniable chemistry between Park Min-young and Wi Ha-joon. It was in the way they looked at each other during scenes. The subtle pauses. The quiet tension. The moments that lingered just a second longer than expected. Viewers often describe great on-screen chemistry as something you can't fake. It's not just about acting skill, it's about connection. And in this case, that connection seemed almost impossible to ignore. Even critics had noted it. Reviews of their project frequently mentioned how believable their relationship felt, how natural their interactions were. Some even claimed that their performances elevated the entire production. So when Park Min-young spoke about those kissing scenes, it didn't come out of nowhere. It confirmed what many had already suspected. Wi Ha-joon's silence speaks volumes. While Park Min-young's comments dominated headlines, one question lingered. What about Wi Ha-joon? At the time, he had not directly addressed her remarks. No immediate response, no clarification, just silence. But in the world of celebrity culture, silence can be just as powerful as words. Fans began analyzing his past interviews, looking for clues. They revisited behind-the-scenes footage, searching for subtle hints of something more. Every glance, every smile, every interaction was suddenly under scrutiny. Was he feeling the same way? Or was this simply a case of one actor being more open than the other? The thin line between reality and performance. What makes moments like this so captivating is the way they blur boundaries. Actors are trained to create believable emotions, to make audiences feel something genuine, even when everything is carefully constructed. But sometimes those emotions don't stay within the script. Sometimes they linger. And when they do, it becomes difficult for both the actors and the audience to draw a clear line between what's real and what isn't. Park Min-young's comments touched on that exact tension. She didn't claim anything outright. She didn't confirm or deny. But she opened a door just enough for people to wonder what might be on the other side. Why this moment hit so hard. In an industry filled with carefully managed images and controlled narratives, authenticity stands out. It disrupts expectations. It challenges assumptions. And most importantly, it creates conversation. That's exactly what happened here. Park Min-young didn't deliver a scandal. She didn't reveal a secret relationship. But she did something arguably more powerful. She made people question what they thought they knew. The power of a single sentence. It didn't feel like acting for simple words. And yet they carried more impact than any dramatic reveal. Because they hinted at something deeper. Something unspoken. Something that couldn't be easily explained or dismissed. And in doing so, they turned a routine interview into a moment that fans would revisit again and again. The internet erupts, a moment becomes a movement. What happened next was almost instantaneous. Within minutes of the clip surfacing, fans across multiple platforms began sharing, reposting, and dissecting every second of Park Min-young's statement. Short edits appeared with dramatic music layered underneath, slow-motion replays zoomed in on her expression at the exact moment she said those now iconic words. And then came the breakdowns. Frame-by-frame analysis. Lip-reading attempts. Body language interpretations. It wasn't just an interview anymore. It had become a phenomenon. The clip that refused to fade. In the days that followed, the clip refused to disappear. Instead, it evolved. Different versions surfaced, some edited to highlight tension, others softened with romantic music to emphasize the emotional undertone. Fan-made compilations paired the interview with scenes of Wi Ha-joon and Park Min-young from their drama, creating a narrative that felt almost too cohesive to ignore. To some viewers, it looked like confirmation. To others, it looked like clever editing. But regardless of interpretation, one thing was undeniable. People couldn't stop watching. Behind the camera, what the audience didn't see. As more attention focused on the interview, industry observers began adding context. Filming intimate scenes is rarely as effortless as it appears. It involves coordination, trust, and a deep understanding between actors. Every movement is often guided, every emotion carefully aligned with the story. But sometimes something shifts, not in a way that breaks professionalism, but in a way that enhances authenticity. And that's what many believed happened between Park Min-young and Wi Ha-joon. There was comfort, awareness, a shared rhythm that made their scenes feel unusually real. The subtle moments fans couldn't ignore. With the interview in mind, fans revisited scenes from the drama. Moments that once felt simply well acted now carried new meaning. A lingering gaze, a soft pause, the slightest hesitation before a kiss. These details hadn't changed, but the way people saw them had. Theories began to form. Speculation grew rapidly. Some believed Park Min-young had revealed genuine emotion, others argued she was simply describing deep immersion into her role. And then there were those who saw a middle ground. Not romance, not illusion, but connection. The kind that exists intensely in the moment, real enough to feel but not necessarily meant to last beyond it. Wi Ha-joon, every move under the microscope. Attention turned even more toward Wi Ha-joon. Fans revisited his interviews, searching for alignment. Old statements gained new meaning. His calm demeanor, once simply admired, now became a subject of analysis. Every word mattered. Every silence mattered more. The power of silence. Wi Ha-joon didn't respond immediately. No statement, no denial, no confirmation. And that silence only deepened the intrigue. Because sometimes what isn't said becomes louder than anything that is. Media headlines take over. Soon headlines spread everywhere. Different angles, different tones. But one shared question. Did that moment mean something more? Each outlet had its own interpretation. But all of them returned to that same line. It didn't feel like acting. The pressure of public perception. For Park Min-young, the moment carried weight. In an industry built on precision and image, even a single unscripted statement can shift public perception. Words can be amplified, reshaped, and reinterpreted endlessly. Yet she didn't retract it. She didn't correct it. She let it stand. Fans divide into two worlds. As discussions intensified, fans split into two perspectives. Some saw professionalism. Others saw something deeper. Neither side could fully prove their view. And that uncertainty kept the conversation alive. The role of imagination. What made this moment powerful was its openness. Park Min-young didn't define it. She didn't label it. She described it. And in doing so, she allowed audiences to create their own meaning. When acting feels real. At its core, this moment raised a deeper question. What happens when acting feels real? Actors aim to create authenticity, but sometimes that authenticity leaves an imprint. A moment that lingers. A feeling that doesn't immediately fade. And maybe that's what she experienced. The weight of a shared scene. Kissing scenes carry emotional weight. They require trust, timing, and vulnerability. When done right, they elevate storytelling. When something extra slips in, something unspoken, they become unforgettable. A moment that won't be forgotten. Time will pass. New stories will emerge. But this moment will remain. Because it wasn't just about a scene.
It was about what that scene felt like.
The ongoing curiosity. Even now people continue to revisit the clip. To analyze. To interpret. To wonder. Not because they have answers. But because they don't. In the end, what made this moment powerful wasn't controversy. It was ambiguity. A glimpse into something real. Or something that felt real. Park Min-young didn't just answer a question that day. She created a moment that blurred the line between fiction and reality. And somewhere in that space between what was said and what remains unspoken, the fascination continues.